Welcome to Hist-Myst, everyone. Today, we're diving into one of the wildest chapters of Viking history, where fact blends with myth, and the line between human and beast blurs completely. I'm talking about the Viking Berserkers, warriors so fierce they struck terror into the hearts of their enemies. These weren't your ordinary Viking soldiers. No, these were men who seemed almost supernatural. But who were they? And what drove them to fight with such insane ferocity? Buckle up, because you're about to find out. Who were the Berserkers? First things first, let's get to know these legendary warriors. The word Berserker comes from Old Norse, byr, meaning bear, and serker, meaning shirt. Some say it refers to the way they wore bear skins into battle. Others believe it signifies that they fought as if they were bears, transforming into feral beasts on the battlefield. According to the sagas, Berserkers were an elite class of warriors who were feared even among their own kind. Imagine standing on the battlefield, and out of the mist, these half-naked men covered in animal pelts come charging at you, eyes wild and bloodshot, screaming like banshees. Yeah, you'd probably drop your sword and run. The Berserker Rage. But what made these warriors truly terrifying was their Berserker Rage. This wasn't just your run-of-the-mill battle frenzy. It was a state of mind where they became nearly invincible. According to historical accounts, Berserkers could continue fighting even after taking severe wounds that would have dropped a normal man. They would howl like animals, gnaw on the edges of their shields, and seem impervious to pain. But what caused this rage? Well, historians have a few theories. Some believe they consumed hallucinogenic mushrooms, like the Amanita muscaria, the red-capped mushroom with white spots that you see in fairy tales. These mushrooms contain psychoactive compounds that can cause hallucinations, uncontrollable muscle spasms, and a burst of adrenaline. It's basically like turning on beast mode, literally. Superhuman strength, or just a myth? There are tales of berserkers lifting boulders, smashing through enemy lines like a one-man wrecking crew, and taking on entire groups of warriors by themselves. These stories almost make them sound like the Vikings' version of the Incredible Hulk. But how much of it is true? Archaeologists have found evidence suggesting that berserkers might have trained their bodies and minds to the extremes. There are ancient texts describing rituals involving fasting, chanting, and even sleep deprivation. They believed that by doing so, they could channel the strength of wild animals. And get this, some even thought they were protected by the god Odin himself, the All-Father of Norse mythology. The mystery of berserker attire. Now, let's talk about their attire. As we mentioned earlier, some berserkers wore bear or wolf pelts, believing they could literally channel the animal's spirit. There were also the Ulfhednar, a type of berserker who wore wolf skins. Imagine facing off against a giant Viking warrior dressed in a wolf pelt, snarling like a beast. It's enough to make even the bravest soldier reconsider his life choices. But here's a twist. Unlike the Hollywood portrayal of Vikings with horned helmets and heavy armor, berserkers often went into battle wearing very little, sometimes even nothing at all. That's right, they'd rush into battle half-naked, or in some cases, fully naked. Why? Because they believed their rage made them impervious to swords and arrows. Whether that was bravery, insanity, or a bit of both. We'll leave that for you to decide. The dark side of berserkers. Now, you might be thinking, these guys were awesome, but not so fast. Berserkers were not just wild on the battlefield, they were often uncontrollable in everyday life too. According to the Icelandic sagas, Berserkers were known to get into drunken brawls, attack innocent villagers, and even kill their own comrades during fits of rage. Eventually, the Berserker cult became so dangerous that it was outlawed in Norway by King Harald Fairhair around the 10th century. Berserkers in myth versus reality. It's hard to separate fact from fiction when it comes to berserkers. While the sagas and poems paint them as near-mythical figures, archaeological evidence shows they were very real. But were they really transforming into wild beasts? Well, probably not in the literal sense. More likely, their wild behavior was a combination of psychological conditioning, rituals, and possibly even substances that altered their state of mind. One interesting theory suggests that they might have suffered from a condition known as hyperarousal, where the body's fight-or-flight response goes into overdrive. Imagine being in a constant state of adrenaline rush, like the moment before you bungee jump, but for hours on end. That could explain the stories of their superhuman strength, resistance to pain, and sheer insanity. The legacy of the Berserkers. So, what happened to the Berserkers? As Christianity spread through Scandinavia, the Berserker cult gradually died out. The new religion frowned upon pagan rituals and warrior cults, and Berserkers were seen as a relic of the old, savage world. By the 12th century, Berserkers had all but disappeared, their legendary stories fading into myths. But their legacy lives on. Today, the term berserk is used to describe someone who goes completely out of control. Video games, movies, and even heavy metal bands are inspired by these crazed warriors who fought like demons. And hey, let's not forget Marvel's Thor going full berserker mode in the MCU. All right, folks, that wraps up today's deep dive into the insane world of Viking berserkers. Whether they were simply misunderstood warriors or genuinely tapped into something supernatural, one thing's for sure: their legacy still captivates our imaginations today. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow history buffs. And remember, the next time you're feeling a little stressed, maybe channel your inner berserker. But, in a socially acceptable way. Thanks for tuning in.